The Geneva University Hospital pulses with the same intensity as always on this cold November morning in 2019. White corridors echo with the hurried footsteps of nurses, the constant beep of monitors, and the low murmur of conversations in French, Arabic, and English that characterize one of Europe's most cosmopolitan medical institutions. In the cardiology wing on the fourth floor, a man in a white coat walks with the quiet confidence of someone who has saved lives for decades. His movements are precise, his hands steady, and his eyes demonstrate the serenity of someone accustomed to making decisions under pressure. The identification badge on his chest bears the name Dr. Ahmad Mansour, a cardiologist specialized in minimally invasive surgery, who graduated from the University of Beirut in 1995, completed his residency in France, and specialized in the United States. His colleagues respect him, his patients trust him. The hospital administration considers him one of the best professionals on the team. But there is something no one knows about Dr. Ahmad Mansour, not even the closest colleagues who have worked alongside him for more than 3 years. He is not just a dedicated doctor. He is a Hezbollah operative, infiltrated into the heart of Europe, collecting information on specific patients, mapping contact networks, and serving as a logistical support point for sleeper cells scattered across Switzerland. And at this exact moment, while he examines medical records at the nursing station, 3 men in discreet suits walk through the hospital's main lobby, carrying credentials that identify them as inspectors from the Swiss Ministry of Health, but who are actually Mossad agents about to execute one of the most sophisticated counterintelligence operations ever conducted on neutral territory. The story that led Dr. Ahmad Mansour to this moment began long before he first set foot on Swiss soil. In 2008, when tensions between Israel and Hezbollah reached new heights following the 2006 war, Israeli intelligence services identified a worrying pattern in the Shiite group's operational methods. Unlike other militant organizations that relied primarily on local recruitment and regional operations, Hezbollah was investing heavily in long-term infiltration into European countries, especially those with neutrality policies that offered a safer operational environment. Switzerland, with its tradition of neutrality, discreet banking system, and strategic geographical position in the heart of Europe, became a priority target for these infiltration operations. Mossad had identified at least 16 Hezbollah operatives operating on Swiss territory between 2010 and 2015, using cover identities ranging from university students to businessmen involved in the diamond trade. But the discovery of Dr. Ahmad Mansour represented something completely different in terms of sophistication and potential for damage. An agent infiltrated into the Swiss healthcare system not only had access to sensitive information about patients who could include diplomats, businessmen, or even intelligence agents, but also possessed the ability to directly influence medical treatments, access controlled medications, and, in the worst-case scenario, cause direct physical harm to specific targets through sabotaged medical procedures. The operation to identify and monitor Dr. Ahmad Mansour began almost by accident through a parallel investigation Mossad was conducting into Hezbollah's financing networks in Europe. In March 2018, Israeli agents intercepted electronic communications between an antique dealer in Zurich and a contact in Beirut, discussions that initially seemed to deal only with legitimate commercial transactions involving Middle Eastern archaeological artifacts. However, deeper analysis revealed that certain words and phrases in the conversations functioned as codes for financial transfers destined for Hezbollah's European operational cells. One of these transfers, in the amount of 45,000 euros, was tracked to a bank account in Geneva, registered under the name of a fictitious charitable organization that supposedly provided medical assistance to Syrian refugees. When Mossad analysts investigated the final beneficiaries of these funds, they discovered that a significant portion had been directed to a residential apartment in Geneva registered under the name of Ahmad Mansour, who worked as a cardiologist at the city's university hospital. At first, the connection seemed too tenuous to justify an in-depth investigation. Syrian doctors working in Europe frequently sent money back to their families or to legitimate charitable organizations, and Dr. Mansour possessed impeccable academic and professional credentials that had been verified by Swiss authorities during his medical licensing process. But Mossad had learned, through decades of counterintelligence operations, that the best cover identities are always those built on partially true foundations. Ahmad Mansour really was a doctor. He really had studied at the University of Beirut, and he really did have a specialization in cardiology. But his biography presented temporal gaps that, when subjected to detailed scrutiny, revealed inconsistencies that a casual investigator would never notice. Between 2001 and 2003, a period in which he claimed to be completing a medical residency in Lyon, France, there were no official records of his presence in French hospitals. During those 2 years, according to what Israeli analysts discovered, Mansour had returned to Lebanon and participated in intensive training in camps controlled by Hezbollah in the Bekaa Valley, learning intelligence techniques, encrypted communications, and long-term infiltration methods. When he returned to France in 2004 to complete his specialization, he was already a fully trained and indoctrinated operative, prepared for a mission that would take more than a decade to be fully implemented. The plan was of an extraordinary patience even by the standards of Hezbollah, which has always prioritized long-term operations over impulsive actions. Mansour was to establish himself as a respected doctor in a European country, build a solid professional reputation, develop a network of contacts that included influential figures in local society, and then await orders to activate his true operational mission. The discovery of this information placed Mossad in a delicate position that required careful navigation between security needs and diplomatic limitations. Operating on Swiss territory always represented considerable risks for Israel, given that Switzerland maintained diplomatic relations with practically all nations in the world, and any exposed intelligence operation could result in severe political consequences. Furthermore, simply alerting Swiss authorities to Mansour's presence without concrete evidence of specific illegal activities would likely result in a bureaucratic investigation that would allow the Hezbollah agent to destroy evidence and disappear before any effective action could be taken. Mossad needed irrefutable evidence of Mansour's espionage activities, but obtaining it required close and prolonged surveillance that violated Swiss sovereignty. After months of internal debate and discreet consultations with allies in other Western intelligence agencies, the decision was made to proceed with a limited infiltration operation designed to collect sufficient evidence of Mansour's activities without compromising Israel's diplomatic position in Switzerland. The operation was codenamed Stethoscope and was placed under the command of a special team composed of agents with specific experience in medical operations and infiltration of healthcare institutions. The first step was to insert an Israeli agent into the Geneva University Hospital, a task that proved surprisingly complex due to the rigorous background check procedures required by the Swiss healthcare system. The agent chosen for infiltration was Sarah Chen, an emergency physician born in Hong Kong who had emigrated to Israel as a teenager and subsequently served in the Israel Defense Forces Medical Corps before being recruited by Mossad. Chen possessed legitimate, internationally recognized medical qualifications, fluency in French, German, and Arabic, as well as previous experience in hospital infiltration operations during missions in Lebanon and Syria. Her cover identity was meticulously built over 18 months, including a period of work in French hospitals to establish a verifiable professional history and letters of recommendation from colleagues who had no knowledge of her true identity. In September 2018, Chen was hired as a temporary emergency physician at the Geneva University Hospital, a position that would give her access to the hospital's internal systems and opportunities for close observation of Dr. Mansour without arousing suspicion. Parallel to Chen's infiltration, a second phase of the operation involved electronic surveillance of Mansour's communications, a task executed by a technical team based in a safe house rented 500 meters from the Syrian doctor's apartment. Using state-of-the-art interception equipment provided by Mossad's Signals Intelligence Unit, the technicians managed to penetrate Mansour's telephone and digital communications, discovering that he maintained regular contact with handlers in Beirut through encrypted messaging apps and used complex codes based on medical terminology to disguise intelligence reports. During the first 6 months of surveillance, Chen observed that Mansour showed particular interest in specific patients arriving at the hospital, especially those with diplomatic passports or connections to technology and defense companies. The Syrian doctor had developed the habit of offering free consultations for refugees from the Middle East, an activity seen by colleagues as a demonstration of humanitarian compassion, but which Chen recognized as a screening method to identify potential intelligence sources or candidates for recruitment. Mansour also maintained suspicious contacts outside the hospital environment, including regular meetings with a professor of Islamic studies from the University of Geneva, whom Mossad analysts later identified as a facilitator for support networks for militant groups in the Middle East. The pattern emerging from Chen's observations was that of an experienced operative using his medical position not only to collect passive intelligence, but also to build a contact network that could be activated for more aggressive future operations. The most alarming discovery came in February 2019, when Chen gained access to the electronic medical records Mansour had accessed in previous months, revealing that the Syrian doctor had consulted patient files far beyond the scope of his responsibilities as a cardiologist, including records of Israeli and American diplomats who had received treatment at the hospital during visits to Geneva. The evidence collected by Chen and the electronic surveillance team reached a critical mass in September 2019, when interceptions revealed that Mansour had received instructions from Beirut to activate a specific operation involving an Israeli diplomat scheduled to receive medical treatment in Geneva the following month. The intercepted communications indicated that Mansour was to find a way to gain medical access to the Israeli diplomat and collect biological samples that would later be used to develop personalized biological weapons targeting the specific individual, an assassination technique that represented a terrifying evolution in Hezbollah's operational sophistication. Faced with this imminent threat to an Israeli diplomatic official, Mossad made the decision to end the passive observation phase and proceed with an active operation to neutralize Mansour and dismantle his support network. The final operation was designed to achieve multiple objectives simultaneously. Capture Mansour with irrefutable evidence of his espionage activities, identify and neutralize other members of his operational network in Switzerland, recover any intelligence materials or equipment he possessed, and execute the entire operation in a way that minimized diplomatic repercussions for Israel. The plan required precise coordination between Chen, who would act as the internal agent, an extraction team posing as Swiss health inspectors, and a technical support unit that would ensure secure communications and electronic data extraction from Mansour's devices. The morning of November 15, 2019, began like any other for Dr. Ahmad Mansour, who arrived at the Geneva University Hospital at 7:30 in the morning for his usual routine of checking patients and preparing for scheduled surgeries. Chen, who had spent the previous night reviewing every detail of the operation with her handlers via secure communication, positioned herself strategically at the cardiology nursing station, where she could monitor Mansour's movements while maintaining a normal appearance of routine medical work. At 9:15 in the morning, 3 men wearing conservative suits and carrying leather briefcases entered the hospital's main lobby and identified themselves at reception as inspectors from the Swiss Federal Office of Public Health, presenting perfectly forged credentials produced by Mossad's Forged Documents Division, using information obtained through previous penetration of Swiss bureaucratic systems. The inspectors explained they were conducting a routine audit related to safety protocols for controlled medications and requested access to prescription records in the cardiology wing, as well as private interviews with selected members of the medical staff, including Dr. Ahmad Mansour. The administrator on duty, without any reason to suspect the legitimacy of the visit, provided full access to the inspectors and instructed the cardiology team to cooperate fully with the audit. Chen received a discreet signal from the Mossad agents and immediately activated an electronic jamming device that would temporarily block cellular communications in the cardiology wing, preventing Mansour from alerting his handlers to the inspector's presence. When the 3 Mossad agents introduced themselves to Dr. Mansour as federal inspectors, he initially showed only the normal nervousness any medical professional would experience during an unexpected government audit. Mansour accompanied the inspectors to a private meeting room, where they began with seemingly routine questions about prescription procedures and safety protocols for cardiac medications. However, gradually the questions began to become more specific and personal, focusing on Mansour's educational history, his connections with colleagues in Lebanon, and his activities outside the hospital. It was when one of the agents casually mentioned the name of Ahmad al-Khatib, the university professor Mansour had met secretly several times, that the Syrian doctor realized he was not dealing with legitimate health inspectors. His years of counterinterrogation training activated instantly, and Mansour tried to end the meeting, claiming a medical emergency required his immediate attention. But when he stood up from his chair and headed for the door, he discovered it was locked from the outside, and one of the inspectors calmly informed him that they had much more to discuss regarding his true activities at the hospital. At that moment, Mansour understood he had been discovered, and that his 4-year operation in Switzerland had come to an end. What he did not know was that Chen had simultaneously activated malicious software on the hospital's computer systems to extract all the records Mansour had accessed, while a 4th team of Israeli agents executed a search of the doctor's apartment, recovering encrypted communication equipment, operational codes, and a contact list that would dismantle the Hezbollah network in Switzerland in the following weeks. The interrogation of Dr. Ahmad Mansour lasted 4 hours and revealed the extent of his activities, which exceeded even the most pessimistic estimates of Mossad analysts. In addition to collecting intelligence on specific patients and mapping connections of diplomats and businessmen who received treatment at the hospital, Mansour had established relationships with at least 8 other medical professionals in Switzerland, France, and Austria, who were later identified as sleeper agents or unwitting collaborators of Hezbollah. His original mission included not only intelligence collection, but also preparation for assassination operations using medical methods that would be practically impossible to detect in routine autopsies, including inducing heart attacks through undetectable drugs and sabotaging medical equipment during critical procedures. Mansour also revealed that he had been instructed to identify potential kidnapping targets among prominent Jewish patients using the hospital, providing detailed information on schedules, security protocols, and vulnerabilities that could be exploited by specialized kidnapping teams. The most disturbing discovery was that Mansour was not an isolated case, but part of a much larger network of Hezbollah medical operatives infiltrated into hospitals across Europe, each positioned to execute similar operations when activated by their handlers in Beirut. The information extracted during the interrogation allowed Mossad to identify and alert European authorities to at least 15 other suspected medical operatives, resulting in a series of arrests and deportations that significantly dismantled Hezbollah's operational capacity on the European continent. The final phase of the operation involved the discreet transfer of Mansour from Switzerland to a secure location where he could be interrogated more extensively without creating a diplomatic incident that would compromise relations between Israel and Switzerland. Using forged documentation, identifying him as a medical patient in critical condition, requiring emergency transfer to a specialized facility in Israel, Mossad agents managed to remove Mansour from the Geneva University Hospital in a private medical ambulance that crossed the French border before Swiss authorities realized the Syrian doctor had disappeared. Chen remained in position for 3 more weeks to monitor any counter-surveillance activity or attempts by other Hezbollah operatives to investigate Mansour's disappearance, but the network had been so completely compromised that no operational response was detected. Operation Stethoscope was officially closed in December 2019, having achieved all its primary objectives and provided intelligence that would be used to dismantle Hezbollah cells in multiple European countries over the following 2 years. Swiss authorities were never officially informed of the true nature of the events, believing to this day that Dr. Ahmad Mansour simply abandoned his job at the hospital and left the country for personal reasons. The only evidence that anything unusual had occurred was an internal report about medical equipment that was temporarily turned off in the cardiology wing during a routine inspection that, according to official records, never actually happened. The long-term impact of Operation Stethoscope extended far beyond the neutralization of a single Hezbollah agent infiltrated into the Swiss medical system. The information obtained through Ahmad Mansour's interrogation provided Mossad with a detailed mapping of Hezbollah's entire medical infiltration strategy in Europe, revealing that the group had invested more than a decade and millions of dollars in a sophisticated program to position operatives in sensitive medical positions across the continent. This strategy represented a significant evolution in Hezbollah's operational doctrine, moving beyond traditional terrorism and guerrilla tactics toward more subtle methods of social penetration that could remain dormant for years before being activated for specific operations. The discovery forced Western intelligence agencies to completely reassess their background check procedures for medical professionals from the Middle East, implementing stricter protocols that included cross-checking with multiple intelligence agencies before approving medical licenses. The case also established a worrying precedent regarding inherent vulnerabilities in Western healthcare systems, which traditionally operated under the assumption that medical professionals would be above espionage activities due to the Hippocratic Oath and the humanitarian nature of their profession. The reality revealed by Operation Stethoscope demonstrated that sophisticated militant groups like Hezbollah would not hesitate to exploit these assumptions, turning symbols of healing and compassion into tools of clandestine warfare. Ahmad Mansour remains in an undisclosed detention facility where he continues to provide information on Hezbollah operational networks through a long-term interrogation program that, according to unofficial sources, has already resulted in the identification and neutralization of more than 50 additional operatives spread across Europe, North America, and South America, demonstrating that the threat of medical infiltration was truly global in scope and ambition.